Hey guys, what's up? Can everybody, somebody give me an audio check if you would? I would appreciate it. Give me a 5 for 5 or a kiss my butt, something. All right, cool, cool, good. Well, guys, I got a good guy here on the, and most of you guys probably already know who Rip is. And I know I say that a lot, but and you know what? I need to quit saying stuff like that because I even mentioned it in my last live stream. Sometimes we forget that especially those of us that have a smaller channel or what have you. I don't promote like Marfugal like I should. You know what I mean? He helped me. He drug me around. I just assumed that people were already over there in the back of my head, and it's like what? But I'm gonna try to get better at that, just so you guys know. So yeah. So we gotta build this community ourselves. And, YouTube's not gonna do it. So we can't keep just all that other stuff muted. Is what I'm trying to say. We can't assume that Marfugal can't grow from what I'm doing, what Rip's doing, because they can. There's going to be people listening to me right now that probably don't even know who Marfugal is, and that's kind of what I'm saying here. So, but to get on to the subject here, we got Rip Girl. He is a prepper, and he's got a great channel. I talk about him a lot, guys. I know you guys have probably heard me say it. But he's an awesome dude. He's down to earth, guys. I mean, there's just nothing bad to say. I mean, we all got our bad stuff, I'm sure. Ain't that right, Rip? But
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I really think that you guys are going to get a lot out of this. My goal here is to get you guys over to his channel because there's so much knowledge there to be gained. And he does it in a humorous way. And number one, I think that's the best way to do it. I think that we all remember it better when we're being entertained. And, what's the best way to be entertained? You got two ways, in my opinion: humor and music. I mean, that's just where it comes from. Typically, you know, we'll learn quite a bit from that whenever that does happen. So, what we're going to do here, guys, I'm going to let Rip have the floor here for a second. Just kind of give a background on how you got started and what we're doing and what you're doing on your channel for a minute, and then we'll just, I might step in and just, interject a little bit if I got a question or whatever, and then I got some questions I want to ask you, and hopefully you guys can get some good stuff out of this. And I really think that you guys will. So please hang around. Also, we've got to. Let me mention this from the start. We got a geomagnetic storm supposed to hit us tonight. We also had a solar flare. It wasn't big, but it did happen. We'll talk about that later at the end of the show, or whenever. I may even just do another show afterwards. Not sure yet, but that did happen. We do have a geomagnetic storm coming tonight. It's supposed to hit, I don't know, well, probably here in the next 6 hours. But there's always a plus minus 7 hour type of thing. So, but anyway, if you guys want, I get this question a lot. What can we do, to prepare for CMEs, solar flares, any of the space weather stuff that we talk about? And what I usually tell people is you need to prep until you're comfortable. But some people don't even know how to do that. And that's why that's why Rip does what Rip is doing. I think he wants people to understand how to get there, and I think you guys will, like I said, I think you guys will learn a lot from this, and it's going to help answer some of those questions for my viewers, for everybody. And so yeah, so I'm going to throw it over to you, Rip. Let everybody know where you're from, what your channel's about, and we'll get rolling.
All right. Well, I'm originally from Hawaii, but had grown up most of my time here in Oregon. I live in Southern Oregon. I don't mind if you guys know it's Medford, so it's a great place. And how I got on YouTube and stuff, or how I started with that is many of you may know me as a moderator on Marfugal on the early days and so forth, when he first started doing a lot of these uh, uh, like collaborations and things like that with multiple people. He had a little thing going there. I kind of got in with that and really liked the idea of what he was doing. I like the idea of building a community, building groups that can help each other. When we talk about SHTF doesn't have to be like zombies or or the end of the world or anything like that. It can be as simple as what happened in Texas. And if Cascadia happens, or the Carrington event, which you guys hear here on Wages about quite a bit too. It's just about being prepared. And so, in being with him for a long time, I got a lot of encouragement from people, just because, I enjoyed the whole community aspect of it and building and helping others, that they encouraged me to go off and do a channel. And so I finally did that. And I got to say, at first, the first ones were a little rough and stuff, until somebody said, well, just be you, and so that's kind of what I did. I kind of was thinking about it, and it's like, I don't want to be, you hear a lot about the fear being used and the doom and gloom being used. And well, I just didn't want to do that. So that's where I came up with, kind of making it fun, just being my silly self, the way I always am. I mean, if what you're seeing there is kind of who I am. I mean, I kind of, stress my accent a little bit when I'm in it, but the hurting myself and blowing things up and things like that, well, those kind of accidents happen to me quite often, in fact. But through that, I've learned a lot of things to help people prepare. And so that was the idea about it. And I started doing that, and people really appreciated it. I got so much good comments back about how people really enjoyed not being, learning something. They really learned something from it, but didn't leave feeling, depressed or sad or scared or worried, because I mean, those things are very real, but they also make you not act. So, that being said, that's kind of the direction I went with it, and showing skills that I've picked up, skills that I've learned. And some of my videos are doing it with me, learning with me, because I don't know everything in the world, but we're gonna do it together. So
Yeah, man. And like I said, I kind of took the same route. I tried to, and the difference with what me and Rip are doing, and to give you a little bit of a contrast, is you can go to probably pick any channel, and all you have to do is look at their thumbnails. Okay, and I'm dead serious about this. You don't see it on mine very often. You probably never even seen one of my videos say breaking at the first word, because what I do typically isn't breaking news. Okay, yes, if there's an earthquake that's happened, I'm going to come on pretty quick, and I'm going to try to do stuff like that or whatever. But for what he's talking about is the fearmonger part of it, and I think that is something that we can't take that route, most of us. But I want to say this too: there are things that are scary that happen. So if you ever see me come out and say anything like that in a thumbnail, you might want to stay for the video, because I very seriously think something bad's going to happen. I mean, I've seen, and again, I don't ever, and you guys know this, I never name channels or anything like that, because I don't think it's constructive. Yes, I think that there's multiple channels out there that's very hurtful to our community. I mean, I think all of us can see it, and we're not, ridiculous people. But I think that if we focus on that, our focus is on the wrong thing. We have to focus on helping each other, not hurting and stopping what other ignorant people are saying. And I think that's where, the line for me, where it stops. And I see a lot of the humor in Rip, and that's why I love his channel so much, because it is not put out there in a fearful, oh my God, run to the hills, come down from the rooftops, don't look back type of thing. But he keeps it real with you too, and tells you that is possible. And that is pretty much why we do what we do. And I've said this before, he can not only help you get prepped up for SHTF, but he can help you get prepped up for a snowstorm. He can help you get, that's the kind of stuff he does, and he does it in a way that's, we can all learn from it. And I think what he does really well is the fact that he brings in things that aren't like $5,000 to go buy. I mean, and I'd really like for you to talk about the new series and stuff you're doing with Scrounging for preps and all that kind of stuff. That was cool, I thought. So if you want to hit on that for a minute.
Yeah, in fact, today is Friday, so I'm going to be doing that after this. Going to head out today is going to actually be the minimum day. I kind of have an idea of what I'm looking for. My minimum for the day is $5. And what that started out with is, I'm like everybody else. I'm fortunate to have things that I've had from the past. But it doesn't mean that, I don't live day to day now. And I think a lot of us are in those situations. We're not doing as well as we used to in the past right now because of everything that's going on. But it doesn't mean you can't prepare. And I was kind of inspired by seeing some other creators out there doing some, of their prepper hauls and stuff. And I thought to myself, well, where can we find money that's just lying around or just takes a little bit of effort to get? And I called it Scrounging for Preps Friday. So every Friday I started out with just going through the couch, which I truly did. I went through the couch. My kids, I tell you what, I think change. I don't think they think it's money, but but it is. And so I went through and I found all the change in the couch, and I went and cleaned my son's car. Man, I got a lot out of that one. He is a mess anyway, but he's a good kid. I went and checked, everybody's got their little area where they drop change and whatnot like that. And I think we came up with, must have been like $17 or something like that after going through searching for change here and there in the video. And then the next week we did, bottles and cans and I mowed the lawn, doing things like that. And it shows you that how each week you can find things where you don't have to spend your money that you earn to pay your bills, but you can still find money to go out and do some preps with. And the goal is over time to show you just how much. Now we just started this, and I think we're in the third or fourth week today, the third or fourth Friday. And so today's going to be a minimum. I did set a minimum that out of each paycheck, you should be able to at least use $5 for prepping. So today I'm going to go out and get a $5 worth of prep items, or it might just be an item, because sometimes the things are more expensive, but I'm always looking for a deal, right? I don't want to spend a lot of money. And that's how that one got started, because I want to be able to show eventually. I'll go and have like a 3-month mark where I show what we've gotten so far, what we're managed to put away, and just how simple it was. And then, I'll do totals and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, that was one of my questions I had, because we're talking about that right now.
Right.
How much do you think is reasonable to spend, like per week, per month, or whatever, on a prep that pretty much anybody could do? Or, I understand that we're all different levels financially. I get that. But I'm talking like at a minimum is what I'm trying to get at,
Well, that's why I kind of set the, well, first off, you've got to take care of your responsibilities. I don't ever want anybody to go out there and prep and do that kind of thing by putting their normal bills on hold or put them in danger. Take care of your responsibilities, because the first thing that does is, by taking care of your responsibilities as best you can, and I know times are hard out there, trust me, is it gives you the freedom to be able to prep, okay? If you're not worrying about those. So take care of those. Now, that's why I set the $5 minimum. It could be that you don't have anything left over, but everybody can manage to find $5. But let's say you're fortunate to have some money left over. What I would do with that is I would tell people, look, pay your bills, and then out of that money that's left over, at least maybe take like 10% of it, say, and use that to go get things like water or a water catchment system, doing things, like getting rice to put away. And there are videos that, I'll have one out there here eventually. It shows you how to store that rice and get things that are good and easy to store for like 25 years, just to have in the event. And I don't know if most people are aware, but most of the government websites, if you go to your state government website under the emergency situation or the federal one, they've changed their guidelines from every person should be able to go with 2 weeks without power, water, food, that kind of thing, right? To now it's 6 months.
Wow, I didn't even know they even did that. That's
yeah, they have a requirement of what people should do.
Wow,
and
I didn't know that.
Up, and they didn't tell anybody. So that's a pretty That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
And you know, now I'll say this. Now, if you're Mormon, which I know I have pretty friends that are Mormons, they already knew this. This wasn't a secret to them. They do that as a general rule,
Yeah.
and that's a good idea.
Or Amish
And
or
that's
some, yeah, people like that. They're already, they're already living off grid anyway. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Well, and so if you can at least take 5% of that or 10% of that of what you have left over and put it towards prep, you'd be surprised at how fast it can multiply. And that was the purpose of that video series too that I'm doing. And with that, when you have that, you take a percentage of that 10% after you've paid your bills and set that aside, so you can just do a bucket that you put those things in that are just in case somebody else is in need, right, during a SHTF situation. You want, if you can. Now, if you can't, don't do that part. But if you can, because my thought is it pre-plans for what you're going to find that happens. There are going to be people in need. There are going to be people that your neighbors, your family, and so forth that might need a little something. And at least you have a little something for them set aside, maybe in a bucket, right? But if you're talking about it, I would say 10% of what's left over. And you can get creative too. And like I say, in that series, I'm going to look for ways to go out and get free stuff. So, and that's what I'm looking into now is where can I go to get things that, and make everybody aware of where you can get them. Right. No, that's true. Because now there's, like, for instance, somebody that lives in a big city like New York or something like that, where people
Hold,
live in these.
hold, hold on a minute, Rip. I was muted. Sorry. The question he's getting ready to answer is I asked him if it was going to be different how we should prep where we live at in the world and if it's any different anywhere. So sorry about that, guys.
Well, yeah, what you're going to have is I mean, sure, somebody that lives in New York where people live in these tiny little apartments, or even more restricted than that in like Tokyo, say, right? And they live in basically little cubicles. And then you're going to have people that live in a city like mine that have neighborhoods that have maybe quarter acre plots or less. Some of them might, that you have your house on. And then there's going to be rural people. You're going to have different levels of prepping. And like in a big city, you're not going to want to prep a lot of like big time stuff because you don't have the space for it. So you're going to be thinking more like your bug out bag and your food and your water, or water first, then your food and things like that as your main things. It's not as if you're going to, your challenge is going to be, what do I need to survive a period of time if there's a natural disaster or something? How far can I live in my apartment and bug in, and then have something or enough in a bag and whatnot, say 72-hour bag, right, to get out of the city, right? So say the danger's in the city's become dangerous, you're going to need what you need to get out. That's different from somebody like me who's planning on bugging in because our town and valley is fairly secure. It's in a safe area. And the dangers here are going to be more about people that didn't prepare per se, or whatever event happens causes there not to be any food that comes to the stores, right? Or the power or water go off. And these are all challenges that I can take care of here at home, is what I'd be prepping for. And just to let people know, and this was really apparent in Texas, and that's my one regret on the Texas video in the snowstorm. I wish I could have done that video before it happened. Hindsight is always more focused than foresight, but there are some tips in there that could have saved a lot of people a lot of heartache and maybe their lives and damage to their homes, that could have helped them get through that a lot better. But so I'm going to be prepping for those short-term things, like your stores are going to run out of food. We saw that in Texas within 3 days, just like we've all said in a lot of prepping communities. If the supply chain is disrupted, your store will run out, especially if power goes down. Your store will run out of food in 3 days. And sure enough, in Texas, in 3 days, anything perishable was brought outside, was rotting outside, and the stores were picked clean inside. So, and because of the weather, they weren't getting restocked. And there's a lot of videos you can see about that out there. That's very scary,
man. That I guess that goes back to what I said earlier about prepping isn't just about a big meteor getting ready to smack the earth, or or a large volcano putting us back to the ice age, that kind of stuff. Most of the prepping stuff that we're going to be affected by is going to be what Rip is talking about here. It's going to be like the regional snowstorm, or it can even get down to like a local level, to where maybe your power station where you live is having issues and their generator's down or something stupid. And I think that's and that's what I like about Rip. He isn't always talking about. Matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever really heard you talk like solely about just SHTF. Because I don't think it's
not a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess what I'm saying is, if you're doing a little bit of prepping, or even just prepping for that kind of stuff, you've already got a head start on the SHTF stuff. Now, you got bug out bags and bug in bag, bug out boxes and stuff in your car, all that kind of stuff, and I think that's all good. I really do. I had that stuff myself. And I think that, I think the goal is to get people to understand that you don't have to automatically just go out to the store and when you come home, you have a bug out bag. That isn't what usually happens with people. Yes, you can go to the store, you can get online, you can order these really, really expensive, already made bug out bags that are just, some of them are awesome and some of them suck. I think that's just what it is. And you help people understand what you're looking at. And I think that's great. And then you show them, you go to the next step, and you show them, hey, if you don't want to go spend this kind of money, and you can build this bag a little at a time, or do whatever, you show people how to do that. You did something that I hadn't seen a whole lot of people do the other day. I'd seen it before. I just didn't know exactly how the steps to do it. And I think this is a really good thing for people to know, was the tea light, the ricotta pot, tea light heaters and lights. That stuff right there, that's the stuff I'm talking about. And you're taking like tea lights and heating your room and producing light at the same time. And it doesn't cost anything. How much is a tea light? How much is a ricotta pot? Come on. Most of us have that already at the house. It's just what it is. So if you want to tell them what that is real quick, I'm sure they'd all want to know what that is. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, actually, hold on a sec here. There we go. Yeah, I just happened to have it right here. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, and that's the way I like to do things, is look at ways to use stuff that you already have. Because here's one of the things to prepping. You said it exactly. If somebody was to watch the videos and stuff like that, and of course they see like my bug out box for the car, that's not something that I did in just one day. Okay, that's something that's part of learning over years and years of examples of things that have happened. And I always ask myself, how can I avoid the situation? For instance, with the truck things or the car things, I make them for all my family members now. But I did it with one to start with, and the reason being is here in Oregon, it never fails. When we get a lot of snow, they shut down a few of the mountain roads, and some of the people coming over from other towns will take a wrong turn and get stuck somewhere in the snow. Nobody knows where they're at. There's no cell coverage, and they don't know what to do, and they're not prepared. And we always seem to have, every couple of years, somebody that doesn't make it because of that. And they make a lot of the same mistakes. Leaving the vehicle, don't do that. If somebody knew that you were going somewhere to somewhere, that's the first step. Let people know where you're going and when you should be there. When you don't show up, people are going to be looking for you. Stay with the vehicle, but have things in the vehicle. That's how that started with me, because I have my kids going to, like I told you, they go to school in OIT, which is only an hour away, but it's over one of the biggest passes that gets icy and dangerous, right? And snow and all that. So I wanted to make sure they had things and knew how to use them, that they could make fire, that they at least have 3 days worth of food in there. And it's not pleasant food. We're not talking about 3 days worth of steak and lobster or anything like that. These are things to keep them alive, things to keep them warm if they can't start a fire because it's so wet or something out, like blankets and whatnot like that. Instructions of what to do in there. There's also things that help them fix a tire, just things like that you learn over time to add to these boxes. And when you think of something, put it in the box. That box may start out with the basics, first aid kit, some water, some fluids for the car, 3 days worth of freeze-dried foods, which is basically, just not as much as you think, or even those survival rations. They're not the greatest tasting, as I found out, but they'll certainly do the job. You put things like that in there to get the basics. And then from there, as you learn that you need something, you put it in there and you put it on the list that's in the box. And then as you use it, you figure out that list. But, that's where those came from. I did them over time. Those are things that I, have done over time, and you can always be adjusting them. So it's not like something you have to go right out and spend a lot of money on. You can just start out with, like I say, the basics. Now, for the snowstorm, this was the pot thing that you're talking about.
Yep.
So these actually, they already had the hole in the bottom, and the dish I had to put the hole in. But all this is a terracotta or clay or whatever pot, and the plate that goes under it. You can get at any plant store, right? And tea lights, which you can get. So this was like $1. This was 50 cents. These tea lights are $3 for like
12, or like a big 24 count or something. Yeah.
Yeah. You get a whole bunch. I think I got, for $4, I got like 150 or something. And then all these are this and the rod that makes it. I'll show you. There's a rod and a nut and all that. You'll notice when you see them that those are basically light parts that you get at Lowe's. You go into the lighting section and you get what's called all thread, and it's just a threaded thing with a hole in it. And then this is the little thing that most light fixtures, you hang the chain, right? And there you go. You light those, make sure that they're underneath there. Never use more than 3. We found that out. Otherwise, it burns too hot. And that creates heat and just a little bit of light so you don't bump your head on things, and little clever things like that. So it doesn't have to be real expensive.
And that, and I think that's I guess that's the whole point, for me, is the fact that, we hear the word prep and it's intimidating to people. And again, like I said, I think you do a good job of kind of wiping that away from people. If people just take just a second just to watch the first 5 minutes of your videos, most of your videos are 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I think the longest one I seen was a live stream. It was like 45 minutes.
Right.
So and I think that's a good thing, because when I switched to do going over to the live stream stuff and I'm on for like an hour, I understand people don't have all that time. I get it, and I did. My subscriber count kind of stopped. I get it. So I'm going to be going back to doing some of my 20-minute daily videos too, by the way. That's not what I'm saying here, but what I'm saying is Rip does it in a very precise way. He doesn't stray from the point of the title of his videos, is what I'm trying to say. And like I said, I think that's good for people because, you know, when you click on something, whatever the thumbnail says is what he's going to talk about. You know, you get so many thumbnails out there that people put in there just to get you into the video. And what they don't realize is, yeah, they're going to get a click with a clickbait, but that person ain't coming back. I just don't get the clickbait thing. But, you know, but let me say this too. We have to put titles in there to entice people to click. You know, you can't be dishonest about things, but you can't be just terracotta pot and walk away. I mean, you can't do nothing like that either. You got to make sure people, you know, it kind of stimulates them a little bit to get them in there. I get that. But I like I said, I think you do the thing with the humor thing, man. It just I love it. And what I'm saying is that what you're seeing here is what you get when you go to his channel. He's not going to be fake. He's going to show you. I mean, he did a video a while back showing some smoke bombs, how to make some smoke bombs. I thought that was cool.
That was fun.
Yeah, he was doing it on the street right in front of his house. I mean, and it was at night, and he was showing stuff, and it was cool. And you know, and with like stuff like we hear things like the terms rocket stove and stuff like that, and just that putting that rocket at the beginning, most people are automatically intimidated. And a rocket stove isn't. I mean, it's such a simple thing. I mean, it really is. It's a simple thing, and Rip breaks that down for you a lot of times. And he shows you, you know, simple little camping stuff that you can turn into something bigger if you want. You know, and that's what I'm saying. And I guess, you know, the big thing is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it. You know, it's such a easy thing to do. You don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't do any of that kind of stuff. I mean, yes, if you want to take it to a level, you can. But for the most part, when you're first starting out, don't be afraid. It just is what it is. And, you know, and I guess, like, what do you think, like, as far as, I mean, you visit thrift stores a lot, right? I mean, I would assume to get this stuff.
Yeah, thrift stores, trash cans, basically. Sometimes, like, well, for instance, I'm getting ready to do my version of a Dakota fire pit. Now, it's going to be something totally different than what most people would think of. And I'm going to go to get my supplies. I'm going to have to go to some of the restaurants around town to see if I can get me, you know, some cans, bigger cans than what I normally use at home, right? So I'm not afraid to go around and, you know, I'll ask them if they have any, or just look in their trash cans to get things, you know. There's a lot of things, you know, that's one of the things about prepping that really got me going on it at the way I do, is I started thinking to myself, what did people do back, let's say in the Carrington event day, right? Back in, what was that, 1800s?
Yeah, 1859, okay. I think, yeah.
1859. What did they do when they had, well, they didn't even call it prepping then. They called it living. It's what they did every day to make sure they had what they needed to live for the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, right? They planned like that. It was everyday living. So if we can do those simple things, now we have the advantage of being able to go to stores and things like that. But if we can start changing our mindset a little bit to that, like becoming more self-sufficient, reusing things that we can use, yes, like cans and so forth. For instance, you said the rocket stove. You know, I made one, you know, there's videos out there where people show you making them out of cans, but I thought, you know, that's not a true rocket stove. How can I make a real one that really works like that? And so I got to cutting and trimming. You know, I ate a lot of beans that day so I could get the cans, but you know, I got the right size cans, and I used the food that was in them, and then I used them, and I got to, you know, cutting on it, and then I did it to where I could take it apart and show everybody what I did. Super simple, works super good. In fact, a lot of people thought it worked better than the rocket stoves that they've gotten, you know, purchased. Yes. And it's something that you can do for nothing. And so, that's just one for instance. But think of things that way, as like, what did your forefathers do? And when you say to go into thrift stores, that's one of my favorite things. Besides yard sales and stuff like that, I mean, you can find lots of great prepping items there. You can find estate sales, things like that. The crank radios and the crank lights that you don't have to have batteries because you just crank them up. You find those all the time in there. Old tools that don't take power, because that's one of the biggest things. Like what Wages here goes over with everybody. If we do get a solar flare that is big enough to take out our power, we're going to need things that don't take power to get by, right? We're going to need ways to make power ourselves so that we can maybe keep our refrigerator going, or alternative ways to keep food cold. Like, I don't know if most people know, here's a quick one. Go, if the power ever goes out, go buy some dry ice, throw it in your freezer, and that itself will keep and then some regular ice if you can, throw it in there, but just the dry ice will keep that temperature, if you don't open it, cold for days. So it'll probably get you past the event of no power. And that's just from buying a 5-pound thing of dry ice. And it'll keep the stuff frozen in there. And then tools like, well, for instance, my favorite, I found this at a thrift shop, my favorite little machete that I use for going out in the woods. This is an old tobacco knife. I love buying stuff from that are 100, 200 years old that are still usable, because if it worked for 100 to 200 years, it'll work for another 100 years.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think a lot of people think that they have to go running right out and get this and get that, and they have to go spend this, spend it, buy that kind of stuff. And when you go to the thrift stores, but you don't even have to do that. I think that's kind of what you're saying. You can just look around your house, and you can find stuff, and you could start there. If you're intimidated, don't be intimidated. Get the family in on it. Especially if you got like teenagers and maybe 8 to 12-year-old kids, they probably think that that's fun stuff to do. And to be honest with you, working with your hands is fun. I mean, honestly, it just is. You don't have to make it a stressful thing. You don't have to make it this or that. Matter of fact, I would caution against making it stressful, because it's, what's the point of doing stuff if it's going to stress you out like that? It's just not worth it at the end of the day. But it's not, So, and I guess if we don't, and there's areas of the country that don't have the thrift store type of stuff. What kind of big chain stores would you recommend? Like,
well, I mean, you'll see a lot of videos out there. Oh, it looks like I'm having an earthquake, huh? You'll see a lot of videos out there about dollar stores and stuff. And there are some good items at dollar stores that you can get, like the Dollar Trees and things like that. In fact, I have a little magnifying lens. It's just a flat piece of plastic. It's about this big. I buy from the dollar store. It's $1. And let me tell you what, you put that thing in the sun, whatever's in front of it, it's going to catch on fire, including your leg. So be careful with it. So things like that. Those are the kind of things I look for. A lot of the stuff, you got to watch it because it's maybe not as good a quality. But as far as your big box stores, of course, I hate to say it, but Wally World is a great source for a lot of things. There are things I don't like about Wally World, but their prices and they're everywhere, and they do have some good things to get. For instance, you can get for $5, you can get a multi-tool, or $4 and some odd cents, and it's a decent multi-tool, which is something that every pack should have, so that if you're out and about, you can fix something if you're hiking home or out camping. But as far as like big box stores, what
about Harbor Freight? Just had somebody asking about Harbor Freight.
So I'm glad you mentioned freight, because honestly, I used to be a contractor back in the day. There's nothing like the right tool for the job and a good tool. But quite honestly, there's also a lot to be said for getting by for a very little. I've had things from Harbor Freight hold up really well. Their tarps are real cheap. That's a great survival item there. Their rope is really inexpensive there, and it is a decent quality rope for doing that kind of stuff with. I get my tie downs from Harbor Freight. The solar panels there, I just heard that they're on sale right now for like $60 for 100 watt, 4 solar panels for 50 or $60, I think it is. And it comes with its own little control unit. All you need is a battery, and there you have power. Well, a
Wow.
battery and an inverter, and then you have power, which they sell there too. So, and they're generators. They've really stepped up. They don't the old garbage they used to have that leaked gas and didn't work very well. They've kind of thinned those out, and now they have a line that's really works really well. In fact, I mean, I know most of you probably know in Oregon, as well as many other states, growing the happy green grass.
You can say it, dude. It's weed. It's all right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Weed is legal, and I can tell you what, they have to limit people here to 5 generators at a purchase because the
greenhouses
people who buy them up. So they must run well enough, because you know those guys are going to be running them constant for power up in the hills. So you know that's a great place to go. Believe it or not, watch your sales, especially if you're prepping during like Black Friday and things like that. And you don't even have to go out during that time. I had it delivered. What was it? Home Depot had a sale on a dual fuel generator, 6,500 watts. That's big enough to run pretty much the important things in your house that you need to. And it was dual fuel, so I can run it on propane or gas. And it was $275. I kid you not.
wow.
And it was a decent brand. It was a you know, it wasn't a Honda or anything like that, but it was a name brand. And
that even surprises me.
Yeah, delivered it to my house, so I was like, yay. You know, so you know, just watching for things like that. You know, some of the other things, if you guys have like a pay and pack or like one of the places that supplies restaurants with their food, but you have to, you know, and they'll sell to the public, but you got to kind of pack it and load it in the car yourself,
right?
You know, into the bags and all. Those are great stores, because that's where you get your rice by the 50-pound bag for inexpensive. You know, stores like that. Sometimes like Tractor Supply stores are a good place to go to get things. And Big R's or Coastals are a good place to go.
You mentioned the TSC, the Tractor Supply stores and stuff. Just in case people don't know, you guys know what Orscheln is? You ever heard of Orscheln? It's another chain store like TSC, but actually, it's the only reason why I know this, it just happened in my town. TSC bought them, so now they're going to be even bigger. So it's kind of a crazy thing, you know. But I did want to hit on the Harbor Freight thing. I think what's happening there, and you're right, the quality of the stuff used to be just junk. I mean, you were a builder. I worked in the technical field, so we were both buying tools. If you walked into the shop with a Harbor Freight tool, people looked at you like you were ridiculous. I mean, because that's just what it was. I mean, only time we bought stuff from like a Harbor Freight was because here in my town we would have like at the fairground, they would come in and have a big like weekend show, and people would go and buy that kind of stuff there. It was all Harbor Freight stuff, and let me tell you, it was junk. I mean, it really was. But now I actually have a Harbor Freight store. It just started up here where I live in Indiana. It's a bigger store, but the tools there, guys, I'm telling you, it's almost like it took the place of like the Craftsman brand at Sears when Sears went out. I know Craftsman's still out there. They're now at Lowe's, by the way. But yeah, I mean the stuff is just as good as what you're going to get with a Craftsman. It just is. And I ain't saying Craftsman's the best top of the line, because I don't know that it is, but it's going to get you a decent tool, is what I'm trying to say, or any equipment like what you're talking about.
Right. And I think it's important to say that, you know, the first places I try to look in my local areas, there's my mom and pop shops. As long as, you know, I mean, as long as they're competitive, I mean, if it's within $1 or $2 of someplace else, or, you know, or it's reasonable, they have to live too. And I think that's really important that we think about the community. The big box stores are going to survive, period. But, you know, with everything that's gone on with these lockdowns and stuff, and all the restaurants that's gone out of business and all of those kind of things, I think it's important for us to look at our local businesses like your local hardware store to get something, and you'll find that a lot of times the prices are just right in line because they have to be. And also too, antique stores, or what I call junk stores, or things like that, like that have like just a wide variety of things.
Like a
Because
like a flea market store type of situation.
right, flea markets, things like that, where you can get old tools that you have to crank, or saws and things like that. All things you may need if the power goes down for a while, right?
Yeah.
So you'll find lanterns, like hurricane type lanterns and things like that. All things that you're at least want one of in case the power goes down long term. And you'll find that they're not all that expensive either, depending on what it is. Some antique places are a little ridiculous, but you'll find useful things there.
Yeah, and something you say a lot is, you want to get yourself a little birdie, is what you say. I hear you say it quite often. As a matter of fact, you were saying it just in your ammo videos and stuff you've been doing. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
You still there, Rick? Okay. Sorry, I hit a button on my computer. I was like, oh my gosh, my screen went black and everything. Anyway, you guys are still there. Thank God.
Speaking of that, making friends. Always treat people with respect and kindness, and be sure to ask them how they're doing, because especially with the hunting for ammo, or freedom seeds, if we want to call it that, that definitely has. And just so you guys all know, if you have a Sportsman's in your area tomorrow, be there early. They're having a big sale that they actually do a flyer for, and they have special boxes. Like, they delivered tens of thousands of rounds of Freedom 22 seeds. Okay, so and they're on sale, so be there. But if you make friends, you'll find that a lot of times those people will call and let you know, if you ask them, when those things are there, if you're looking for something you can't find.
Right. And I think that's a great point, because I think, when you were saying, you got to support the community and everything, we're talking about our YouTube community when we're talking about online, but we have to take that to the next level. We have to take that out to the real world. And I think that's a great point, because, and like you said, yes, you might pay just a smidgen more, but it's not going to be much. Okay, it's just really not, because they're not going to be able to sell something if it's $30 more than the big box store, because who's really going to do that? I mean, it's just not going to happen that way. It may be a little bit more expensive, but guess what you're getting? Number one, you're getting yourself a little birdie. Number two, you're getting a lot better customer service. And I think that goes a long way, and we all forget that sometimes. I know I do, because we're all just so driven by price and price alone, and it's easy to get that way. I'm not trying to tell people not to do that. I just think that, the way you were guiding people as far as, getting birdies this and birdies that, you guys can get an advantage over the general public by doing that. And it ain't so much just having that advantage. You could make a friend. I mean, my gosh, just be good to people. And I think that, matter of fact, me and Rip were kind of talking about this pre-stream, and it just, we're just not there anymore in our society. And it's going to take people like us, and all you guys here in the chat, and anybody in our community that's listening, to turn that back around the other direction. We don't have to be mad at people. We don't have to be mean to people. We don't. And I say this a lot, you're going to catch a lot more flies with honey than you are shit. And I'm sorry for the cuss word, but that's just what it is. And I think that you guys are going to see a lot of that kind of an attitude over at Rip's channel, and I think that is just something that has really drawn me over there. And, and I think that, I guess the next question I would have, what would be like your top 5, I guess, preps that you would want to start with, maybe?
Well, yeah, so the most important things, if you're starting off prepping, is one, water. And when I say water, is there's only so much water you can store. I mean, you kind of, anything that you prep, you're going to have to, kind of go through it. Like, take one off the shelf, put a fresh one up. You're going to have to, circulate through it like that. So water is one where you want to have some on hand. And you want to have the ability, like whether it's buckets or a water jug, or stuff like that. So I always get like, so, at least have some bottled water, and then have the milk jugs of water that you can get at the store for under $1. I have a few of those, and then I have something I can fill with water. Or for instance, you can get something like this. You can see the picture you there. It's a bladder that fits in your tub, and before you lose water pressure, you could fill it up with water, and it'll hold, that's roughly probably 50 gallons or so in a tub, maybe 30. And that'll give you water you can use for cleaning and even drinking it because it's sterile, that kind of thing. So you want to have a way to hold water, and then you want a way to purify water, because that's the most important part. You have some you can use right away, but eventually when you use it up, you're going to need a way to sterilize water. So I would say that's probably my most important, is some water on hand, because 3 days without water and you're in serious shape.
Yeah.
And having a water purifier, whether it be a Sawyer Mini or any of the Sawyer brands, or even a Berkey, but those are expensive. So, and you'll see I've done 2 videos where I built them out of buckets. One I used the Sawyer, one I used another brand I found online. They both work great, and they both, I think one was $35 and one was $50. So you can't go wrong, and it was real easy to do. So that would be the number one. Number two, no, 1 and 2 are the same. Water purification. So you have your water store, your water purification. Then you're going to want some long-term food storage. And, you can find that. A lot of people think that's really expensive, and it can be. But for instance, Costco right now is running a sale. It's $50 for something that's normally $300, I think, if you order it online. And it's 124 servings in a bucket of food stores. Thought I had one here. And it's just a big bucket that has 124 servings of meals in it.
I think you showed that. Didn't you just show that in one of your streams? I think you just.
Yeah, it was in one of my videos there. And in fact, I think it was in my last Scrounging for Preps, because I took in a bunch of cans and did some yard work for it. Because it was $60, but that's a lot of food for that amount of money that can last 25 years. But you can also take rice, put it in a bucket, beans, put it in a bucket with Mylar and some oxygen things, and I'll do a video on that gets you to have some food on the shelf that you can get by with in a long-term situation. So that would be my second thing, is just having some food on hand so you can first last a short time, like maybe a couple weeks, like Texas had, and then maybe start working on your long term going past that. Then the fourth one would be medical supplies. It's a good idea to have your basic medical supplies: Band-Aids, blood. What is it called? Bleed Stop, which is a chemical that stops bad bleeding.
Isn't that a powder?
Yeah, it's a powder, or you could get it on gauze patches as well, which work real well. You'll want like a pressure bandage, and some of those things you can go, if you've got a local Army surplus store, it's a great place to go for that kind of stuff, or your medical supply stores, because every town usually has a medical supply store for people who have to deal with wounds that they have all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially people with diabetes and stuff like that can sometimes get wounds that they have to keep clean and dressed. So a store like that will have some pretty affordable dressings, and you want to get like 4x4 gauze patches and 8x9s, and just a little bit of everything. Some tape, get some good tape. Coban, I don't know if you know what that. It's that stretchy stuff. It's not like an ace bandage. It's kind of like
It's a throwaway. It's a throwaway ace bandage.
Yeah. It adheres to itself, and it's kind of like the in between tape and an ace bandage.
And that's the stuff that they use like when you go get blood. They wrap it around you.
Right. And I advise too that everybody. I mean. And I'll be, of course, doing a video on this. I may have already done one on my IFAC, but I'll be doing my videos on my advanced IFACs as well. So you can just see the basics of kind of what you need. It helps to have some medications set aside. So one thing that I advise people do, now I'm not a medical doctor or anything like that, so I'm not giving any medical advice, but you know, when you are filling your prescriptions, call in a few days early. They fill your prescription, usually no problem, as long as it's not a controlled one or something. And you know, you can even sometimes call in a week early, and then go ahead and put the extra away when you get your prescription. A lot of people say that, oh, prescriptions lose their potency. You know, there's a lot of things out there that say that that's not entirely so. So it wouldn't hurt to have a stockpile where you could get by a couple weeks or longer, if you don't have it, because that is a very realistic thing that can you know, start becoming hard to find. Pharmacies getting shipments, because I know nothing was coming into Texas, so if you ran out of your prescriptions during that time, you might have been out.
Right.
And another thing too is a tourniquet, right? This is a Cat 7 tourniquet. And I'll have a video on it, but there are also other videos out there on these. It doesn't take much to learn how to use them, and don't worry about putting them on there. They don't go about time anymore. The only thing you want to note is when you put it on, that you don't have to undo it every so many minutes or anything like that. You just want to get to the hospital. This is something that if you have an extreme bleed from an artery, from an arm, you know, a leg, something like that, you can put this around it and stop the bleeding so that you don't die right away, and then you can get to the hospital. So a tourniquet is something like if you get stuck by a stick, or, you know, heaven forbid, in a violent situation, get shot, something like that, this can help. Other things like chest seals and things like that you can put on, they stick on to cover holes elsewhere.
Right.
Those are handy to have. So a medical supply kit like that, is a good thing to have, your basic medical stuff. Then number 5, and these are pretty much in order too. I try to take it as what's most important. And some may argue on this one, but things like water and food and medical supplies are your most important. But a means for protection is definitely, and that one I know is kind of a hot topic because some people aren't comfortable with certain means of protection, but at least have something. It doesn't mean you have to have something that makes lots of noise and shoots freedom seeds, all that kind of stuff. I guess firearms okay to say, but
yeah, good.
Anyway,
don't worry about the keywords, man. I'm not. It's okay.
Okay. But you can get mace, tasers, all kinds of that stuff. You know, just even a stick, you know, a pole to keep somebody away from you, a distance away from you, and things like that. But a means for protection is probably number 5 for me. And that's not only to protect you and your family, but it's also to protect others. Because as you were saying earlier, we talk a lot about community, meaning our community on the internet, which is, I mean, it's amazing, this community, and I appreciate it and all the input I get more than you guys will ever know. But it also needs to spill over into where you are locally. Having a local group is important. Having some people call them a MAG, a mutual assistant group, but having family, and I know sometimes that can be hard. Some family may not see eye to eye with you on these things, but find people that do, whether it's your family, your neighbors, friends, and things like that, and kind of have just a loose plan. You know, talk about it. Meet once a month for coffee and talk about what would you do if we lost power like that, you know, in Texas. You know, are we all set up for it? And have people you can rely on. And that goes back to the little birdies. You'd be surprised when a little birdie, when a situation happens, is somebody that can really help you out if you need something. And vice versa. You might be able to help that person out. So building groups like that, I think, is the most important. I'm not a fan of the lone wolf or the gray man thing. You know, that's necessary, I think, if you're trying to get to your group or you're the only one left. But I think you have a lot of security and power in groups. And then I would say the last thing, I know it's a little more than 5, but a means of power. If you can do something for a means of power, whether that's, you know, craft a bicycle a stationary bicycle to a generator that you can ride to give yourself power for a little bit, or solar things like I've shown little solar lights that you can set in the window that charge themselves, but also will charge your phone. That will give you a lot of ability to call, look things up if the internet's still up, that can help you in an emergency situation. And then, like you were saying, Harbor Freight and the solar panels that are there and kits like that, you can build your own solar generator. Having a generator some way, and that's a bigger one, but if you can work to a point where you have some basis of power, that will help you in an emergency situation, I think, really, really, really well.
Yeah, I think all those are great, dude. I mean, and I think it's a good starting point for people, man. I mean, I really do. And like I said, guys, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's the biggest misconception about prepping. What's it take to prep? Should we do this? Should we do that? And my channel, I don't get the questions that Rip does, but I do get asked a lot. What can we do? And sometimes I don't have a really good answer. And it's just what it is. And that's why I'm learning a lot just from watching you. I mean, just to be honest, I've watched some other preppers, but I've never been brought in a way to where I can actually, be entertained. There's a lot of videos out there that can show you how to make a terracotta heater, okay? But some of them, they're not even talking. They're just literally just showing you what to do. It's like going back to school. Nobody wants to go back to school like that. I mean, it's just what it is. And I try to, on my channel, I try to keep it as entertaining as possible too. But there's only so much, and this is another way that, because I deal with so much negative information. Okay, space weather isn't totally negative. I mean, there's just typical space weather that we get. But the fact of the matter is, when we're talking about, like you mentioned earlier, like a Carrington event and stuff like that, a lot of that is what I'm talking about, because when it does come down to something like that, and again, I say this too, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because it will happen. Whether we're here or not to see it, that's the next story. But do you really want to be the person that's stuck with nothing? And that's the biggest question you have to ask yourself. Go ahead.
Well, and I think, honestly, one of the big reasons I watch you, besides being a great guy and a great channel that I've known since Blue Kool-Aid days for sure, is solar weather is has more effect on our lives every day than say a lot of the possibility of a lot of SHTF situations. I mean, here's the thing, it's every day. And what your channel had me do is and yours and another channel, I couldn't understand why when I bought it, and this kind of goes with prepping too, when I'd buy a tarp that used to last 2 years, now it only lasts a few months.
Right.
Okay. Literally that serious. My car used to, be just fine and it was just good, but now all of a sudden within the last couple of years, and I know some people could say it's age or whatever, but it was drastic like this, and the clear coat started coming off of it. I did a bucket garden last year as those were some of my first videos. First time doing a garden, and it really went well, which is another great prepping thing to get self-sufficient. But I put the buckets out and they started discoloring within days, like fading. And then they were getting brittle because I pulled one of the handles and it broke. So I had to make reflective things to go around them. And that kind of stuff got me thinking. And I got to studying on your channel and another one about the UV rays that are coming at us all day, every day, right?
You can say the channel name, dude. I don't care. It's all right.
I think, is it?
Mr. MBB3, maybe?
That's it. I think that, yeah, he's the one that checks the UVC and all that.
Yeah, it's Mr. MBB3. Yeah, go check him out, guys.
Yeah, truly, because he got me to, when I could, I added to my preps, and I actually got UV detectors because I wanted to see for myself.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Not that I didn't believe him, but it's a way to gauge it for yourself, because what was happening is UVA and UVB were increasing heavily. But UVC, which I didn't even know existed until I studied all this. That's what I love about channels like yours is it gives me a knowledge so I know why something's happening. Like my ear rings all the time, and the stuff you share with me, no kidding.
Yeah.
When the resonance is up and stuff like that, it's loud.
Yeah.
Really.
It's amazing, isn't it? Stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And so I got the UVC detector, and sure enough, UVC is making it to ground level, which it should never do. And that's the one that you literally have to wear long sleeve shirts. They don't make a sunscreen good enough to cover it for any long period of time. You got to just cover yourself. And that's what's destroying things that you leave out so fast. And I know I'm not the only one that's noticing that things are just falling apart if you leave them outside.
Yep.
And that's because we are getting hit with a lot more UV rays.
And you're 100% right. And that's kind of like, people ask, well, how does my channel overlap with a channel like yours? Well, this is how. It's all in a circle, and this is why we're all doing this. It isn't about, just, I don't, and this is going to come out sounding really bad, but I don't care about clicks and views. I don't. I just want people that want to have the information to be it available. And I've made some great friends like Rip here and you guys here in the chat, a lot of my mods. I made some really great friends through all this. But I work in lawn care. A lot of people know that already. And I seen it firsthand with my eyes, just without even having to do what you had to do. It's so evident to me that from the time I started like 5 years ago in lawn care, and I'm not like the most intelligent person when it comes to this stuff, but from now, like to go look back on it, I progressively seeing things happening, like from year to year. And it was like, if we're having climate change or whatever, stuff like that, it shouldn't be happening that fast. This should be over like a generation type of, and yes, we can adjust for that, and that is a normal thing. I mean, stuff changes on our earth, guys. I mean, it's just what it is. I hear people say, well, our climate shouldn't do this, our climate shouldn't do that. Well, how do we know? We don't know what, historic record doesn't go back far enough. But anyway, without going into all that, but what you're saying with the UVC is exactly that. You cannot protect it unless you cover yourself.
Right, and it directly affected the garden I was trying to do because I couldn't have those buckets fall apart because they were holding the dirt, and I needed to be able to move them around because I was figuring out where to put things, and I was able to find too. They make it's like bubble wrap with foil on both sides, and they sell it at Lowe's. It's the coolest stuff, and it's made for wrapping water heaters basically. I don't know why, because there's insulation on a water heater already, but it actually reflected the rays back. So I built little round things out of them, taped them together, and now I have these sleeves over, and the buckets lasted.
Yeah.
So it had have a direct effect on what you're trying to do every day, whether it be prepping or everything else. And
I think that's what you were saying. It's about it's not just about curiosity of the knowledge. It's about once you have that knowledge, what you can do to help, like what if he hadn't have seen Mr. MB3's videos or mine or whatever, would he have known that he needed to cover that, or would you have just tried to reflect it and do whatever you needed? See, that's what I'm saying. Even though you don't think stuff overlaps, it does, and that's what we're trying to do here in the community that we're all a part of. And most of you guys already know this, and I get it, but there's people out there listening right now, might listen here in the future or whatever, that don't know this yet, and they're not going to unless people like Rip continue to do stuff like what he's doing, what I'm doing, and things like that. So when we're talking about prepping, don't be intimidated. That's my biggest thing. I really want people to understand, because I know you guys are all smart enough to do it. I do it. Rip does it. So I mean, it's not like it's not brain surgery. It's just it can be intimidating, but.
Right, and there's things I don't know that I'm actually looking forward to learning with you, and I'm going to be right there with you learning. so that you know that, you know, anybody can do it. Because if I can do it without hurting myself seriously, well, then you can do it. And then one of those coming up is hopefully going to be canning. I mean, last year was my first year doing a garden, and I noticed some of the people in chat had mentioned about gardening being a good prepping item. And that is absolutely true, because prices aren't getting any less when it comes to our food and stuff like that. And being able to, anything you can produce yourself will lessen your dependence on the government and whatever's going to happen, whatever your beliefs are in where the country's headed and stuff like that. The more you can take care of yourself, the less you have to worry about what happens. And that's the whole point of prepping. You know, for instance, when the whole CV-19 thing started up, right? Everybody's just pulling their hair out because of the toilet paper situation and other things like that. And the funny thing is, you know, I got made a lot of fun of by the family and whatnot. Just, you know, they're being nice, but they're just, you know, they probably think I'm a little crazy. But until we didn't have toilet paper, and then they said, well, we're really kind of thankful that you stocked.
Yeah.
So you know, it's about that, and gardening is a great way for that. Last year was my first year, so it was a little scary for me, but it went so great. I can hardly wait till this year.
I think you did an awesome job with that. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, I was surprised. In fact, it got a little out of control, so I'm really looking forward to it. And that's the other great thing about prepping channels and stuff is the comments and the people sharing ideas and how to deal with things. I've learned everything I need to in interactions with the people that watch the channel, leave comments in the channel, and I've shared with them as well what I've found through doing it, and showing them that anybody can do it. And the next one's going to be canning, and you know, that can be a little intimidating for people with the pressure and all that. If I can find a pressure canner, I'm going to do it. So
we'll hook you up with that. I got connections with that. So, but yeah, we'll make sure that gets done for sure. Because that is, you know, like he says, you know, that was part of one of his top things to be prepared for. You know, water and food. I mean, come on, you have to be able to. And this is stuff. And the thing of it is, like with the canning, like what he's talking about here is, even if SHTF doesn't happen, you rotate that through and you still use it, and it's not like it's going to go to waste. And I think that's something that he's actually pointed out many a times, and I've learned from this, is the fact that if you're going to go buy a prep that you can use, you know, when it gets close to its expiration date, and you can still use it if you need to. Now, when you're talking about like the nasty taste and whatever you were saying, just survival stuff, you know, you don't absolutely have to eat that stuff, okay? I mean, that's just something that you might want, but that stuff, a lot of that stuff lasts 25 years. So, I mean, it's like, you know, and that's something else I thought was cool. You were cracking me up with that, where you went the whole day and ate was it 3 days or was it a day?
No, I just did a day, but it was a 1,500 calorie, what they call a lifeboat ration or just emergency ration. They're usually what's in lifeboats and stuff. And I got to ask myself, I was like, well, how does it taste? And will it actually keep me from feeling hungry? Right. And now keep in mind, it's not like, I mean, I need to eat a whole lot less, and I'm working on that and getting into shape like we all do. I'm sure, you know, because, you know, life, life gets slow when you get older. But, you know, I thought to myself, I bet it'll keep me alive, but will I be hungry? And strangely enough, I wasn't really hungry. I mean, at the time I was ready to eat the next meal, because I broke it into 3 meals, just like I would if I was surviving, right? Mm-hmm. If I broke it into those 3 meals, you know, I was hungry at the time I should have been, and then I ate it, and I was able, and then I even challenged it by going out and doing work outside to see if it was enough calories to do that. And that it pushed it a little bit. The last meal I was pretty hungry because it's only 1,500 calories, and that's a good goal. Speaking of prepping and how much food, the minimum is probably about 1,200 calories a day. Now, some people will say 2,000, but that's what you should have maybe normally, and that's a good amount of calories. But when you're talking about survival, have the ability to, you know, have at least 1,200 calories per day, at least.
Right. That's a good point. I mean, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on, so people could get to know those little things, or that's the little tidbit of information that you need to know to so you know what to do. I mean, if you need a certain amount of calories to keep moving, you're gonna know what that is if you come visit his channel, because it just comes out. I mean, that's just what it is. And obviously the focus of my channel is different, and but we overlap here, and I get a lot of questions on the prepping, get a lot of all that kind of stuff. But even before I had my channel, I think I met you over at Marfugal even before my channel started.
Yeah, you were at Marfugal as Blue Kool-Aid, and that's how I found your channel. And like I said, I've watched it ever since, because how we overlap as well is that the event, and as you know, for instance, a good friend of ours, Survival Living, he does most of his prepping because of the Carrington event and what it did back then. And it's like you talk about all the time. We don't know where, we don't know when. I don't even think we know the extent of how much it could affect the earth. Right. But will it happen someday? Yes. The odds are that it will. Do we know when? No. But don't you want to be ready if it does? Now, some people will say, for something that might not happen for thousands of years, why would you do that? Well, things happen every day. That if you had a stockpile set back, and another guy puts it, Alaska Prepper puts it as, it's a saving account for the future.
Yep.
It is. And it's not going to go to waste. It's something you're going to use, and it also gives you peace of mind knowing that it's there.
Doesn't Marfugal, doesn't Adam say it's an insurance policy for just life? Ain't that?
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, it's just kind of what it is. And yeah.
So you get hit by, nothing to do with a catastrophic event, but you get hit by a car, you're in the hospital, right? And your family, and you're the major breadwinner, right? Your family is going to be thankful that food is there if they don't have a check coming.
Yes, exactly. Even like something we were talking pre-stream to our own personal lives, and I had to leave my job and stuff like that, and that if we hadn't have been we weren't like prepped up for like that didn't come into play there. But what he's talking about is just being aware, and we were prepped up enough financially that we were okay until I figured something out. Okay, but that's kind of what he's talking about. We need to take that and apply it to the basics of life, and just get it there to where we're up there. And I guess the last question I would ask: what level do you think people should try to get to as far as prepping? I know it varies throughout the whole world where you're located and all that, but like I guess the question would be more of a mental state for me. What mentally state should you be in to feel comfortable, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you want to be able to have and this gets into practicing too, which is important, but and you even said that about the kids too, getting the kids involved. This is something that can be a family thing, and it's what they used to do back in the olden days, and they did this and involved the kids because it was life skills, right? And I think we've lost some of that. So one, practicing these things, how to start fires, having the basics to purify water, and knowing the basics that you need that we went over earlier. But as far as from a mental standpoint, so that you can feel that you're fairly prepared, I would say having the basics that we went over, enough to get you by a minimum of at least like 3 weeks. Okay. Because if we look at a current event that happened that was serious, was Texas. It was the most current. Now we've had others like flooding and things like that. But Texas, they I think it took 10 days or something maybe to get power back. Right. Roughly right in there. And so if you had everything you needed, well, you would have been at ease of mind, and you would have had what you needed if you had 3 weeks worth. I would say that would be your minimum that you try to want to work to, is at least 2 to 3 weeks worth of, and that means water, like you say, water, food, medical supplies, medication, and ability to maybe make power, fire, that kind of thing, your basics. You know, produce heat, especially in that situation with the storm. Um, and then from there, you'd want to work towards the 6 month mark, I think.
Okay.
And then that right there is a pretty comfortable thing. There are people that go out to the year to 3 year mark, but you know, anywhere between say 2 to 3 weeks and 6 months, because there were situations like Katrina and things like that that really flooded out Louisiana, stuff like that, where it was months before things were back.
Right.
So it, you know, and there's going to be help to some extent, but it took a long time for help to get there, especially like in Texas. And in my opinion, I think Texas did their people a disservice by not simply telling them simple things they could have done to be prepared.
Right.
They knew a storm was coming. They knew it was going to be bad, but they had enough time. Like, I almost wish I had a rewind button so I could have done my video, even though it probably wouldn't have gotten out to enough people, and put it in front of that storm, because there would have been a whole lot of damage and a whole lot of people not hurt if they'd have just done those basics.
And I think that's, you know, like I said, this is why we have to push people and let people know that there are channels out there like yours that can help, and it isn't something that has to be so intimidating that you just don't want to mess with it. And I think that for me, you're the best prepping channel out there. Okay, so that's just my opinion. And I'm not blowing smoke. You know, I've been through a lot. I've been around this community for a while, and when you finally started making your videos, and just the way that you presented it was something that was different immediately. I mean, immediately different from anybody else, and it was such a, I guess, a comforting thing, because you don't want to walk into somebody's video and be intimidated by what they're saying, because you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it if it's intimidating. Let's just face it. That is the fact of the matter. If you're scared to do it, you're not going to go do it. All right? And I think that's what the goal is, to get everybody to get this information in such a good way that even your kids can sit down and watch. You're not going to find, like, you just as much as kids can watch my channel, they can watch Rip's. You're not going to find any of that nastiness. You know, it's not going to go there. Yes, there might be some innuendos, but the kids aren't going to understand any of that. I do it here on my channel. I mean, that's just what it is. It's humor. I mean, come on. But, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's more comfortable around people like Rip. It just is. It's just the way that it is. And I think that people will retain the information, and I think people are going to get a lot out of your channel. And I hope that we can build it and build it and build it, because I really think that, you know, you were talking about getting your computer and stuff. And once you do that, I'm telling you, man, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit for you now. You're doing very similar to what I did. I did my channel on my phone for over 2 years. That was it. Seriously. I mean, I had a computer I did research on, which I think probably is what you do. But when I did my recording, it was on my phone. I did all my editing, all that stuff on my phone. And that's just what it had to be. It's just what I did, and it's what I was comfortable doing. But once we were talking about the OBS thing, but pre-stream and all that, you'll figure that out, dude. I'm telling you, man. You're gonna skyrocket. I promise.
Oh, I appreciate it, and I really do. It really does mean a lot, especially from you, Mark. I mean, you're an awesome guy. I really appreciate you and all the support that you've given, as well as even guys like Mark Pyers and whatnot. I mean, these are the kind of people that I think, you know, need to be out there, and because it needs to be inviting. It needs to be something that people, like you say, I've heard people say edutainment. I've heard people say, hey, there was something that I didn't think of, or I forgot, or I need to get that. And that's my whole purpose of that, is just, it just clicks and reminds people. It's a fun way to do it. That's kind of what my goal was, is that, you know, I didn't want it to, I mean, you can tell you enjoy it, Rip. Okay. Yeah. And like, the only thing that'll ever change in my channel is as you say, as I get a computer and learn how to do more technical things, the production level may get a little bit nicer, but I'm still just going to be me. That's never going to change. That's all that really matters at the core of it for me. It'll probably still just be me trying to do my one takes.
Well,
But
I
it'll be
mean,
nice to be able to edit and things like that. But other than that, the content's just still going to be the same, so people can have a good time and they can see it can be done and do it. And I also I want it to be interactive with people. I get so many ideas from the people that leave comments. I learn so much from them, and I then turn around and share that with everybody else. So
that's key, guys. In case anybody that's ever going to try to do a channel, you have to be accessible. Um, why else would we do this if we didn't want to connect with people? And you mentioned Mark Pyers earlier, and that is most definitely something that people can connect with. And it what Mark does for me, and I'm sure you feel the same. It gets us out of this, and we can go have fun. And I send people over to you and to him because those are the people that I would want to be around. Okay, I'm not going to send you guys to people, and I think Rip would be the same. I'm not going to promote anybody I don't like, even though they might have some good information over there. You can go look through my subscription list. You're going to see people there that you probably think, why is he subscribed to them? Because they don't like each other, this and that. There's good information there, but I'm not going to promote somebody that's a butthole. It's just not going to happen. And it'd be ridiculous if people did stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I think that we all have to be accessible, and you are, and that's something that you're really excelling at, and it makes it you're easy to approach, and I think that that's key also. And so that's what you're going to get over at Rip's channel, guys, and that's why I even before I even entertained having him on my show, I was pushing you guys over there anyway, before I even tried to even have any kind of interviews. This is, like I said, this is my second one, so I do apologize for that little mute thing earlier, but that's what happens. Before we let you get out of here, I'm gonna switch over to a different screen real quick. I'm gonna show them this geomagnetic storm real quick. We'll come back to you, okay? If that's okay.
All right.
You gonna hang around for a minute?
All good.
Okay. All right, guys. So just hold on just for a second. We're gonna get. Let's just do this real quick. Let's see if it'll. Yeah, it went. Okay. Can you guys see that? Just let me know if you can. I think you guys. Yeah, you can. I think. Can you guys hear me? Everybody hear me? No, just give me an audio and everything. Make sure everything's still fine. I don't want to. Okay, cool. So yeah, guys, we got a geomagnetic storm coming. You can see it right here. This is a G-1 storm. They're predicting it to happen actually here in the next, any time now. Okay, just so you guys know, the geomagnetic activity chart here, it is definitely it's on the uptick. So not much more to really talk about with this, other than what can we had a flare here. This flare isn't why we're having this geomagnetic storm. The geomagnetic storm is being caused from a coronal hole. Okay, here's the sun. Actually, the coronal hole that's giving us the geomagnetic storm tonight is actually gone. It actually rotated off to about right here, and it actually closed back up. So, but I want to point this out: the northern coronal hole is stretching down towards the equatorial regions now. We're going to connect to that. We probably already are. You can see how it's even here. How it's kind of getting a little bit darker than the rest of the sun here. This is starting to open up. I don't think that's going to open up all the way. It could. But I want to say something here too. You guys see these active areas? If you guys remember, if you guys had followed my channel at all here for the past few months, we were seeing sunspots appearing, which is showing that the sun's waking up. But they were only in one hemisphere at a time. Now we're seeing them on both hemispheres because we actually have a solar maximum, like a peak. We get two of them, and people don't know that. And this is why, and I'm not going to go into why that happens. It's a very long conversation, which I will have in the future with you guys. But just know that this is another sign that the sun is waking up, that now we're seeing active areas, and these are actually named sunspots now. So these are official sunspots. They have the right characteristics in the core here on the surface to be called this. So they both have numbers. So we're seeing them in both hemispheres. That's another sign to say we are on the uptick, and it's not going to go back the other way. We're going to have slow times, but it's not going to be anything other than that. It's not going to go the way that it was. Here's the end mill model. I don't so much trust this one too much anymore, guys. It's wrong too often. I do trust the other one, the data one, better. But this gives you a visual. This little hump here is probably, once that gets here, it's probably what the geomagnetic storm is. So we're just going to have to wait and see. What can we expect from a G1 storm? Increased aurora, maybe some earthquake activity uptick. You can see here magnetically we are starting to react, and even with the electron flux here, this stuff is starting to happen. Now, there's something called a CIR also, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow in my video tomorrow morning. So if you guys come back tomorrow morning, that'll be on there. It mimics a CME, but what it is it's the space in between slower moving solar wind and faster wind behind it. You get a buildup of density in between those two. And when that hits us, it very much so looks like a CME, but it's not. But it does act the same. We see aurora like crazy with this stuff. So that's what we got coming right now. We are getting ready to experience a CIR, I think. I think it's CIR. I might be using the wrong three letters there. It might be CIR. I think it is CIR, not CME. So I can't remember exactly what that stands for at the present time. It's escaping me right now, but I did do some research on that, and it is a phenomenon. I've talked about it before, but again, that they're saying we may experience that also. But this geomagnetic storm we're going to get, guys, is from that coronal hole. Now, again, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, but and we also had some auroras show up that was red. And if you guys don't understand what happens with that, it's because of slow acting molecules, okay? And it actually happens during slow solar wind, believe it or not. We see some of that stuff sometimes gets in when it's moving slow, and it interacts with the oxygen molecules, and the time that it takes that reaction to happen is what causes each different color that we see. So if it happens slowly, we see red. If it happens fast, we see green. And that's why we typically see green, because the solar wind doesn't typically get in far enough unless it's moving fast. I hope that made sense. I know that's a lot of bouncing around or what have you, but that is what we see when we see the aurora. And so we may see an uptick on that here. Now, the earthquake thing, guys, that definitely is something I always talk about, because it is a direct bam, okay? I do think it has an effect on our the solar wind, and space weather in general has an effect on earthquakes. You have to understand the Earth is kind of like a capacitor. We hold energy, and then a capacitor can only hold so much, and it has to let it go. And that's what happens sometimes. And I think that sometimes when we're letting that go, we're actually pushing out and magnetically, and it lets things move. Plus, even us just drawing it in actually can sometimes cause some of that. So yeah. So there's your little, again, that was a B class flare. I don't even think it got up into C class. It looks bigger than what it actually is. When we're looking at this, we have to understand that it's, sometimes our base level is even close to a C class flare. These are X-rays. So, like Rip was talking earlier about UVC, our magnetic field is 25, and it might even be greater than that now. It's continually weakening. We're at least 25% weaker than what we were. So the stuff that we just got through talking about, it's going to continue this way, and it's going to get worse. So when we're talking about UVC, they didn't even include it in the textbooks 5 years ago. You guys need to understand that, because they thought that it was impossible for UVC to hit the surface of the Earth without it being from an unnatural source like welding. If you've ever been a welder, you get exposed to UVC. That's what that's part of it. And UVC is caused from other things too. Tanning beds used to do it. They've taken that out of there. But as far as the sun doing it and getting UVC to us now, that is happening. That is very provable now just by getting a monitor like Rip was talking about. Mr. MBB3 has done a lot of work with that. He has his network set up, and the UVC is seen on the surface of the Earth from the sun. So that's just another way of saying, hey, we need to be paying attention, and this is what's going on. So let me get Rip back here for a second. Let's see if we can't get you in here. Alright. You can probably see everything I'm doing here, so that's okay. There you go. Alright. Well, Rip, thank you for coming on. You got any last thing you want to leave us with, or?
I just want to appreciate you or say thank you, and I appreciate you having me on. I've been looking forward to this, and I always look forward to your shows and everything. I learned so much. I got to tell you, and your community is some of the most amazing people that I've met, and I consider them friends. And I always look forward to seeing them. Like I said, everything you just said is so very relevant and helpful. In not only getting prepared, but also in just everyday life, from ringing in the ears and all kinds of other things. And it is good information to know, and so that you are ready for whatever may come, even if it's just a storm or an earthquake or whatever. And I will say this about the channel. Don't be alarmed if you guys see that I add readiness to the end, because as I make little changes, I'm a little concerned with Rip. There's a Rip Curl Surf Company. I know you guys will see it if you ever search the name. It's been around forever, and so I'm not associated with them in any way. It's just a nickname that I had from when I was younger, and so I might add readiness in the end so that everything's just hunky dory with them, and we don't have any issues. And I'm gonna have a second channel that starts up called Rip Curl Readiness at the Range. And all that is going to be it's just going to be me, but it's going to be doing stuff that are firearms related, just so I can separate the two channels to protect the one where, my community is, that I enjoy seeing every day, so that, how YouTube is. And the other one will be for the people that enjoy wanting to see that and have asked. I'm going to do that for them. And, and if you haven't signed up, if you're new and you haven't signed up for the big giveaway, I did start a giveaway where if I reach 4,000 subscribers, I'm giving away 3 big boxes of basic starting stuff for prepping. It's just, you'll see the video, the sign up video. It just says big giveaway. All you have to do is just watch the video and do what it says in there. And as soon as I reach 4,000, we're going to go ahead and just pick winners, and it's really good stuff, and it'll be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew, just so that everybody has an opportunity to sign up.
So yeah, guys, I mean, I really hope that you guys really enjoyed this. I know I did. I hope you guys really go over and check him out. If I could get one of my mods to drop his link again, if you would, please. We've been dropping it every so often, so we can get you some traffic over that way. You're by no means a small dude anymore, by the way. You're growing. So, and I think that's something. The advice I would give people that are starting channels out: understand there is a subscriber season. Okay, I know it sounds ridiculous. Okay, right now is the worst time. So just so you know. People have channels like myself will be gaining 300, 400, 500, sometimes 1,000 subs a month. Dead stop, bam. I mean, you're wondering what happened, and it's like, well, that is just what happens. And then in September, you'll notice that everything starts smacking back up. I mean, that's the most busiest time. If anybody wants to check out how anybody's channel's doing, just so you guys know this, I point this out quite often actually. Social Blade. Go to Social Blade, type in anybody's channel, you can see how much money they're making. Just so you know, it's there. Anybody, it's all public there. They give you a range of what it could be, but they have a live subscriber count for your channel. It's just some people actually put that on their screen when they're doing their videos or doing their live streams. So when people come in and they subscribe, that number actually changes. You see a lot of people with it in the background on like a red light scroll bar thing. Just depending on what's going on with all that. Everybody's channels are different, their setups. But I think that you guys will definitely get a lot out of Rip. He's a great guy. And just so you guys know, I didn't mention this, but he lives out on the West Coast, and he's Cascadia type of situations out there. So he's that's something we didn't touch on. That's a big subject. It's a huge subject, but that is something that people out there need to prep for that.
And all I'll say to that is, with the Cascadia thing, is if something that I become aware of does happen with that, or I have any information, that is one type of news item that will hit my channel. I do have friends in the National Guard and so forth like that, that they have been practicing for that said situation for the last couple of years. So it is a real thing that they think about. And so if I know about it, you'll know about it just as soon as I hear it. So I try to keep an eye on that, just like Adam does, as well as Mark here. So don't hesitate I have an email in my about section, and usually on all my videos. Feel free to email me. And also, if you look me up on Social Blade, I'm not monetized yet, so there's no, they won't be able to what I'm doing there. But what I do hope, that being said, is if I do go that route, which I probably will monetize, because if you don't, unfortunately, I was told that YouTube doesn't promote your channel.
I'm not monetized, so
yeah. Well, and for me, it's about growing the community. Right. I want to reach more people, so I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Like I said, about sharing the information and growing the community. So.
Well, anybody starting a channel like yourself, or not starting, but doing a channel, I actually advise people to monetize. There's nothing, guys, you got to understand, there's a lot of work that goes into this, number one. Number two, even if it is just to get your word out, it does help. I'm crippling myself a little bit by not doing it. But there's an advantage also a little bit, which is why he's starting his second channel. We didn't talk a lot about the firearm stuff that he does, but the ammo haul and stuff. That you guys got to go watch his last ammo video. I mean, come on, that was awesome. He was changing clothes, going back in. I mean, it's great. But yeah, I was loving it. Great advice. He's talking about having little birdies telling you when the stuff comes in. I don't have the same rule that Rip does. Okay, and where I live. Rip, you can only go in and buy 2 boxes a day of ammo.
Yep.
That's not the rule here. Ours is a little different here in Indiana, but it's still limited what you can get. But that's something we didn't talk about, and I wish we would have, to be honest with you. But go check. Yeah, we'll do it again for sure. Do it again. So. But go check out his last ammo video if you guys want any information on that. That was very, very, number one, it was entertaining. Okay, number two, it's actually good advice. I know it, and he didn't tell you to lie or nothing like that. It's just, you guys got to go watch it. It's funny, it's awesome, and it's good information. So, but I wanted to point that out because the ammo thing is a very important thing for most of us. I know that not everybody's on board with the whole firearm thing and all that. Okay, I mean, you don't have to do that. It is what it is. Everybody has their own reasoning behind whatever. But just know that when you go over there, you're going to get some of that too. So there's not only just, it is part of prepping, guys. If you don't have, you can have your Freedom Stick sitting on the counter, but if you ain't got nothing, if you can't put the seeds in it, it doesn't matter. It ain't going to grow. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, that's just what it is, So, but Rip, if you would hang on here for a second, when I kill the stream, we'll talk in Zoom for a second, if you would.
Okay.
But so yeah, guys. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I know you guys. I'm sure you did. I enjoyed it. So yeah. But anyway, guys, like always, God bless. Yahushua saves, and